Hey, today I'm testing GigSky eSIM on the NCL Escape. So you might notice the background's a little different. I'm going to test it in my cabin, on the deck, and import, and the results might surprise you. Welcome back to the channel. This is a follow-up to my eSIM video from last week, and today I'm putting GigSky eSIM to the test on the NCL Escape. I'll show you how it worked at sea, import in my cabin, and how it compared with the ship's Starlink Wi-Fi. And stick around because next week I will have a full cruise report on the Escape, the NCL Escape, including how I booked the cruise using MyVegas rewards and the boarding issues in New Orleans and packing tips and blackjack results as well. And also the blackjack tournament. Now I've actually qualified for in the blackjack tournament for the final round. That's going to be tomorrow. So next week's video, I can give you an update on that. Hopefully that'll be a positive result. And also all the points that I earned on this trip and see what that allows for. So why am I testing eSIMs on a cruise? Cruise internet can be very expensive. On NCL, they do give you with a free at sea 150 minutes right out of the box, which is nice. And it's Starlink internet, so those minutes disappear fast. And if you're actually trying to do something like read through YouTube comments or something like that, you're going to burn through all your minutes, but not actually use a lot of data because it's measured by the amount of time, not the amount of gigabytes. So even checking email and other things like that can really burn up your minutes if you're reading as opposed to batch downloading and batch uploading. So an eSIM gives you some data in the background without touching those limited Starlink minutes. So the idea is that would be a good way to augment it. So I'm not sure if it's going to be a good solution for me. So this is what I bought. The GigSky plan, which allows both import in on the cruise ship using their cellular system, the multiple plans. So the one I got was a 3 gig plan because they had a Black Friday deal. And then for this 3 gig plan, it was $48.99. So that's not actually the best price. I guess it's $14, $15, lower $16 per gig, but it's nice to have that cellular at sea. You can use it in port, but for me, it'd be better to use my Google Fi SIM because it's $10 a gig for port. But I did test it out both ways, just really for this channel. So the 3 gigabytes so far has been enough. It's nice to be able to have the internet open and look through YouTube comments or look through email, not burning through a lot of data, but having it open the whole time. So that's what we definitely done. GigSky did work in the cabin while we're at sea. However, it's after getting port and on the way from port, it's turned off. So it doesn't work at all. So that's frustrating. And you do have to go through a number of things, and I'll show you some of them to configure everything for that. At sea, out on the deck, that's when I stepped outside on the deck. The connection was better, still not fast. And it may show a really good connection to the cell signal, but the internet may not be functioning. So it's hit or miss. And I think a lot of it may determine on the weather. I think their internet for this is definitely not using Starlink. It's probably using an old C-band type of internet, which uses the geosynchronous satellites. So anytime the ship moves or changes in positions or if there's bad weather, all those things can affect that signal greatly. So I think that's definitely a factor. But we had pretty smooth sailing. I did have some really good experiences for a while out on deck. Something in the mornings, it did not work as well. So when I arrived in port, GigSky struggled to connect. It had no signal in the cabin at all, which I guess is because they're switching over to the land-based cell signals that we're attaching to. So, and I guess that's to be expected. But later in the morning, in the afternoon, GigSky worked great. And I was able to actually use both my Google Fi and GigSky simultaneously side by side. I did test it alongside with Google Fi, and it handled calls and text, which was really nice. And then also the Google Sky handled the data. If you got a plan that doesn't give you internet in Mexico or on your Caribbean cruise, GigSky might be a really good option for all those things, including to augment on the ship itself. It's really hit or miss. So I don't know if I'd pay for it again, but it's definitely a nice option to have. And even for a longer time period, I guess it depends on what the cost is. but it is nice to have a backup to that. The NCL Starlink, however, was really fast. Each pass through gets 150 minutes. However, you can add on to that. It was fast. It was reliable. However, the minutes keep ticking. And if you're just reading something, you're burning 30 minutes, which is super frustrating. I did find that you can share it with a hotspot. On my Android phone, I have a Pixel Pro. I was able to easily share it with people I was traveling with via my hotspot. So that was really nice. Sort of got a 4-to-1. We let all four of us be able to use the internet on one account, but we had to start the clock, turn on the internet, and then stop it in order to not buy another package. Now, you can buy additional packages, and I'll link that in the description, what the cost is for adding the different options they have. However, I think it's like $40+ a day. And if you do that for 7 days, it's a significant thing. Of course, you need internet. That's a whole nother issue. Definitely something to keep in mind if you're trying to travel continuously all the time and stay on budget, because you can't be in vacation mode, spending money 365 days a year. So I'm trying to travel more. I'm retiring in the near future. So I got to make sure I've got that plan together. And that's what I'm working for right now. So I did talk about Sailly in last week's update as a eSIM provider, not for cruise ships, but for just global and everything else. I did purchase a plan. However, I've not activated it yet. It really didn't seem to make sense in this scenario to do that. So I'll have to follow up with that in the future. But I do think the proof of concept is there where I can go through and keep my regular number, especially while I'm still working. I want to make sure I have a reliable phone and text and doing multi-factor authentication, that kind of thing, while I'm still working. However, definitely using the eSIM side by side seemed to work. So in that scenario for Google Fi, at least, I would want to use the low $20 a month plan, keeping my unlimited talk and text. Then I can use the cheaper 1 gig for $3 as opposed to 1 gig for $10, which is what Google Fi charges. So anyway, that's the plan for that. And when that comes up and I have an opportunity to test that, I'll definitely share that with the group, because I think that's something to do. And I know there's other eSIM providers out there. I know Parleo is another one of those. If you have some experience with that, please share in the discussion so we can share with the group. And because the thing is, we just need to be able to travel effectively and smart. It's nice when you land someplace to have data already there. Maybe you can call it Uber or do whatever, or Lyft, and do that immediately. And I think that's really important. So final thoughts on GigSky. GigSky is great for light data use, especially for email and YouTube comments. I did find it useful for that. And for its best import, of course, you're using the land-based sales towers at that point, and it may not be cost effective. So that's something to keep in mind, unless your cell plan doesn't cover that. And mine does at $10 a gig. So I don't think I would use GigSky for that purpose. Google Fi is a solid backup for all those things, which I think is good, including when my plan switching over to Sailly for their global plan, which includes the United States, but I can use Google Fi as the backup for the data provider. And it'll be 3 times the cost of what it appears to be on Sailly. So that's the thought there. And next week, I want to do a full evaluation of our trip here on the NCL Escape out of New Orleans. In my group, we had personal cabins, we have an interior cabin, and it's actually some of the smallest cabins I've seen, and storage and stuff. But I'll go through all that information real quick. Let's see. I do have some speed tests. Let's go over the speed tips that I have. All right. And so here's the speed test that I did using the Aqua speed test. This one you're seeing here is for Google Fi, and it was getting 6 gigabit downloads and 5.7 uploads. This right here is the Norwegian Escape's Wi-Fi, which is what you get with the 150 units that you got for free. And you can see the speed. They're using Starlink, and the speeds are great. 49.1 download, 18 gigs upload. And this is what we're at sea. So that I think that was a really good result. This is a Google Fi connection while we're in port, I was only getting less than a gig at point 4. Now this is in Roatan, Honduras. So that obviously can be a big factor, but it was showing LTE and it was showing an okay signal. So the download was 0.4 and the upload 1.31 gig. So not ideal for sure, but at least there is some connectivity. And this right here is GigSky, and it's actually very similar. It's 0.96 download and 1.81 was the upload. Again, and I guess that they may be even using the same cell tower, which was yesterday, and that was in Roatan, Honduras, while at port. So, and you saw the other speed test when I was actually going through YouTube videos through my channel, and you could see it was much faster. So it's really just hit or miss. Sometimes it's working well, sometimes it's not. And I think there's just been so many factors, it's hard to predict when that is. So anyway, if you have any suggestions, please let me know. I'd like to share it with a group. Because we need a strong option for when we're traveling, where we're going to Las Vegas, where we are on a cruise, or traveling to Europe, wherever. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe. By the way, I've got a ton of subscribers recently. Really, really do appreciate it. Also, check out the discussion, because there is a lot of discussion on all these videos. And I think some of them some really good points. So anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe for our weekly travel videos and credit card points and casino comps. Join the newsletter at cardsandcomps.com for trip updates and extra strategies. And be aware now that my newsletter provider, I mentioned I had some technical difficulties. The technical difficulty was I mentioned the word casino in the newsletter, and they decided that that was not a word that they wanted in their newsletters. Even though I have disclaimers about responsible gambling, I definitely try to be very realistic about the gambling aspect of it, and have very limited expectations, because the house always has an advantage. So I want to definitely keep that in mind. But I do have to find a new newsletter provider, and I'll be working on that. So please subscribe. I really do appreciate it. When I get the process back rolling again, it will give at least once a week, when I send out a video, a complete description of what that week's video. So if you're interested in it, they'll have some add information and additional resources that are available on the website. Anyway, thanks again. I'll see you again next week.